Hey everyone, Rambo says hi to you. Welcome. So I have wanted to do this show for a while. I started it before. It was called Welcome to the Ish Show, but YouTube doesn't like that word. So we're going to call it Our Crazy Messed Up World. And we watch our crazy messed up world every day on these court clips. But so many of you have firsthand experience with how messed up this world is. So I want to hear your stories. We're going to start with Debbie. Most of you know Debbie. She is over at True Crimes of the Criminal Mind. And she has an interesting story. And here we go. Small town story. So where did you meet your husband? Tell me how you met him.
Yeah, I was working at Ayers in Trenton at Ayers Rehab and Rehabilitation. My friend that I worked with at the nursing home, and we would talk about, dating and romance and that kind of stuff because she was starting over and I didn't have anybody. So one day she's like, I know, I got the perfect guy for you. He's just like you. He's a big kid. And I was like, okay, try not to be insulted by that.
That's an interesting way to put it.
And then she goes, and there's nothing wrong with him, which is like a red flag, when someone says
there's something wrong with everybody.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll meet him. She drives him to the nursing home and then leaves him in the car and then comes in and tells me, okay, he has a speech impediment. I was like, Dawn, you said there was nothing wrong with him. She goes, no, but listen, he has a speech impairment because he forgot how to talk and had to relearn. I was like, what? And she said, well, his mom got murdered when he was 5 years old. And they think that his dad is the one that killed her.
Wow. So Mary Margaret Barefoot, cool last name, grew up in rural Central Florida. So did Lether Earl Cook. Terrible name. They met and were married in 1962. They had 2 sons, purchased a house in Highland City, Florida. Tiny speck on the map near Lakeland. Shortly after celebrating their 8th wedding anniversary, Mary disappears, and 53 years later, there's still no trace of her. You know I'm going down this rabbit hole.
My friend, the day I met him, she told me about his mom. So I kind of pretended like I didn't know that. There has to be trust build up for something like that, and I wanted to make sure that he trusted me enough, because when we were looking at pictures of his stepmom's second wedding, he said, he called her his mom, and then he goes, she's not really my mom, she's my stepmom, but we call her mom. And I knew his real mom had died, but I pretended like I didn't know the story. Because I said, you told me that was your stepmom, so what happened to your real mom? Did she die? And he's like, yeah, she died. Somebody killed her. And my dad has really big hands. That was the way he told me. And I was like, wait a minute, you think he strangled her? And he's like, yeah. And I started crying, and he goes, why are you crying? Are you going to run now? And I was like, no, why would I run? And he says, because it's happened before. No, what your dad did doesn't reflect anything on you. No, I'm not going to leave.
So tell me, the stepmom married the dad, so that would be his second wife, and the dad was accused of murdering
his first wife? Yeah.
And was this like a public thing? Did people, was that a known thing? Did she know this when she married him?
Oh, he was a house painter. So he had gone down to Green Acres, Florida, where she lived, and was painting houses
near West Palm Beach, right?
Yeah. I don't know if she was his client or if they just met when he was down there working, but she did not know that he was married at first. This is what she told me. She didn't know that he was married.
So he would travel from his home in Central Florida all the way down to South Florida every week to work and come home on the weekends to his wife and his
Um,
kids?
I guess he came home on the weekends. That's something I've never asked anyone.
We wanted to double check on this part just to be sure. And it looks like Earl would come home some weekends, not all weekends. The weekend in question, Mary was supposed to go on a camping trip with her family, and she backed out at the last minute, saying that Earl had called and said he was coming home that weekend. As you can see from the map, it's just under 3 hours, the trip between Highland City and West Palm Beach. And I'm not even sure that road was there back in the 1970s, so it could have taken much longer.
He told her that he was married and then told her he was going to go home right then and go ask her for a divorce.
And this is sometime
And
after we've been together.
I don't know how long they were together when that happened. And so then he comes home and his wife has magically disappeared, the one he was going to divorce so he could be with the other woman.
Wow. We
I
didn't
don't
really
know.
talk about where this happened at. So that they lived in
They lived
Highland
in,
City,
yeah,
which is Polk
um,
County, Central
yeah,
Florida.
yeah, Lakeland. You've got Highland City and Mulberry and Bartow. Not really like the suburbs because it's too far
No.
out, but yeah.
I tried to obtain a police report to get details on exactly what happened related to Mary's disappearance. However, I was told that there was no report, that the file or the call had been closed. So we had to go with what we knew and was posted online. Mary went missing on November 14th. The only thing I can find is about 5 days later, the Orlando Sentinel posted a notice, a brief, that amounted to 2 paragraphs saying she was missing. As the story goes, Earl told investigators that around 8:45 p.m., his wife left the home to go Christmas shopping for her 2 boys. Now, Earl had pretty recently returned home from an extended period of time down in South Florida working. And as soon as he got home, she had canceled the camping trip. Because her husband was coming home, she decided to leave and go shopping, Christmas shopping for her boys at 8:45 at night when the store closed at 10, and it's over a month before Christmas. So the department store she went to was called J.M. Fields, and it's a standalone department store, had a large parking lot, and it was a very popular store at the time.
And supposedly she went Christmas shopping and somebody kidnapped her from the parking lot. Well, she wore glasses and her purse with the glasses inside the purse were in the car. So, like, you don't drive up to a store and then take your glasses off and put them in your purse. So it
Did
just,
she wear the glasses all the time?
yeah. Yeah, her mom
Like
said
she
she
couldn't
couldn't see
see
without
without
them.
them?
Could not see without them.
About a week into the investigation, investigators started to believe that Mary may have met with foul play. The only thing that seemed to be missing was Mary and $200 that she reportedly had in her wallet. That's about $2,000 in today's money. The fact that Mary's bag, her keys, and her glasses that she never took off were still in the car caused concern. Further, no one was able to identify having seen Mary in the area. And Mary drove a very distinctive car, a 1959 Cadillac with fins. These were pretty rare in 1970 and would have been noticed. So attention started to turn to Earl, as he was the last person to see Mary, and he was the person to discover her car in the parking lot.
And you know, the thing about the glasses was something that his stepmom told me and then was repeated by his grandmother, that she never took them off because she couldn't see without them. And that makes sense that it didn't happen the way he said it happened, because even if like someone had grabbed her and her glasses had fallen off, they wouldn't be in her purse. They would just be in the car. So, and I know that's slim evidence, but to me it seems like it's good circumstantial evidence. And the $200 that was supposedly stolen, Travis was like, he would have never given her $200.
The two boys were home at the time of Mary's disappearance, and if anything happened to her, they would have been present for that too. Travis says he remembers hearing them fighting. He was the oldest at 5 years old. His younger brother was only 3. He also has mentioned a red blanket, but it's unclear where that information came from. It's mentioned in the NamUs database, but without a police report, it's hard to tell when that statement was taken, if it was at the time of her disappearance or 20 years later. It says that Tony is worried that Travis saw something and he's been holding it inside his whole life.
Travis doesn't say he saw anything. He says he heard it. They were outside. And he said he heard them arguing outside, and there was another person there too. So I don't know if his memories are real or not, because when he first told me, he said that he was leaving his bedroom to go see what the noise was about, and his dad was coming in the front door and said, "Go get me a blanket." Now Travis is saying that he didn't get the blanket, that his dad came in and got the blanket and he saw him get the blanket. So I don't know how much is real memory and how much is just stuff that, your brain does weird stuff during trauma. Travis now says it was a red and black blanket, but before it always been red. So that's why I think it's false memories. I don't know. And Travis says, I don't know if this is supposition or if it's repressed memory or if he told him, but Travis thinks she's in a sinkhole somewhere that has been repaired and has buildings over it.
Man, this one's deep. In addition to the fact that Florida is the sinkhole capital of the world and there's sinkholes all the time that get filled in and built over, I also found this post on Reddit that discusses Highland City back in the 70s and 80s. And this gentleman or lady was talking about doing a survey of the phosphate mines that were everywhere. And I actually have an aerial photograph from the 1980s. And if you see the water that looks kind of greenish, kind of neon, that's where they were filling in whatever mines that they had. That's what the phosphate mines look like. It gives it this gorgeous teal color, and that's from all of the minerals and chemicals leaching into the water. So they said in the post, we'd always joke that if we wanted to dispose of a body or even a car, we would do it there, because they had what they called slime retention ponds, or some people called them clay ponds, where they would put the clay with water, and it was kind of liquefied, but it almost made like a quicksand until the clay settled down to the bottom. And if you put something in there, it just kind of got sucked in. And they tell a story about a small plane that crashed into one of the ponds, and there was multiple witnesses, and there was nothing they could do because it sank down into the clay, which it was like quicksand. It just sucked it all in, and there was no way to get them out because it happened so fast. And yeah, crazy. Lots of possibilities in that area at the time, in addition to water. There's lakes everywhere, but in addition to the lakes, there was also these clay ponds, the phosphate mines, and all the different levels of, wow. Nuts.
Because, in my mind, there has to be somebody else involved. Not in the actual murder itself, maybe, but
For helping him dispose of the body.
He had to drive the car to the store, and then someone had to drive him back. So
yeah,
he had to have somebody help him. There's no other way. So there's somebody out there that knows and isn't saying anything. And Travis's family does not talk to him because he believes that.
With no leads to go on and no information coming in, Mary Margaret's case slowly faded into the cold case category. No one gave up, but there wasn't much they could do. Earl proceeded ahead with his plan, the reason he had come home that weekend, to tell his wife he wanted a divorce. Except now, he couldn't tell her. But to get a divorce, he had to. So, he put a publication in the newspaper as is required by law, and waited for her to answer, which of course she didn't. But he eventually was granted a judgment because that's the law. And because it's the law, he got everything: the house, the cars, which he promptly sold her car after her disappearance. I guess he wasn't very optimistic that she was coming home. It took him several years before he actually relocated to Green Acres. During the time between then, the children bounced around between family members, some of Mary's, some of his. When Mary's family started questioning him about what happened, he'd get very defensive, shut down, and take the kids, not answer. So he eventually relocated, hours away, making it difficult for communication to happen. Then he married the girlfriend that was the reason he went home to ask for a divorce in the first place. The one who didn't know that he was involved with the murder of his wife. According to a post she made online, a public post on a public forum, she said, "Well, of course he was questioned and was a suspect. The husband's always a suspect. I didn't think anything of that."
So the day she met me, we went out to breakfast, and I had my hands on the table, and she leaned forward and grabbed my hands, and then she looked at Travis and she said, "Debbie knows I'm not your real mom, right?" And I remember thinking,
that?
I remember thinking, well, if I didn't before, I do now. So the day I met her, she had us driving all over Polk County. She was trying to prove that he killed her somehow. I don't know what the purpose of driving around to all these places. There was a house that he would go to and leave the boys in the car while he went in this house. So we drove out by where that house was. Like,
Drugs,
that's
maybe?
all I know. I mean, that's all I know about. That's weird. Like, I don't.
Like, what else
But
would you like if
and I don't know. It's just weird. She, like, all these different places. The store where the car was found, that place, someplace else.
So she was driving you all around town in Polk County, showing you all the places that Earl used to hang out, alluding to
Yeah.
the fact that he was guilty of. Have a good small town story.
Figure out how he did it or where he put her or something like that. And that she wrote a poem about her. And
Have you read the poem?
I might have back then, but that was like 17 years ago. So I don't remember if I did or not.
Okay. I'm going to read you the poem real quick because I found it incredibly disturbing. So
It says April 25th was Margaret's birthday. She would have been 62, still very much in the prime of her life. I know she can't read this, and I'm not a poet, so I'll make it a tribute. Happy birthday in heaven, Margaret. It seems like yesterday. You were a 25-year-old mother taking the children out to play. First and most importantly, no one believed his lie for long. Your babies are grown men now. They're kind and brave and strong. I imagine your face lighting up with pride as you look down from above to see them tenderly caring for the families that they love. Never will they lift a hand in anger, or will an unkind word be spoken. These two men are proof positive the cycle of abuse has finally been broken. Your mother's health is better, although on days like this she's sad. She's content to walk among us until she can be with you and your dad. Your siblings, they still miss you, but they've moved on with their lives. Now they share their Margaret memories with their children and their wives. Family hopes that you know and understand the tears they shed the day you wed. Some were for your beauty and others were about the man. They never, ever liked him, but for your sake, they really tried. Your love for him was strong and pure. Their doubts about his love for you is what they had to hide. I find it so ironic is the baby girl you wished to bear for him was born to him and another. Look down at her, Margaret. Your eyes with tears will dim. You are her other mother. About you, she knows all. She tries to help her brothers understand why he never calls. You'd be so proud of her too. When to her father's up she stands. Until you speak the truth, Dad. Of you I've washed my hands. All three have asked him, Margaret, Dad, what happened to your wife? His answer was to curse at them and cut them from his life. As you look down from above, we're sure you'll see the legacy of your love. There's one last thing we can do. Until we breathe our last, we'll keep searching for you. That, how creepy is that? I mean,
Yeah.
that is, from a psychological standpoint, I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't play one on YouTube. However, I've taken several psych classes and studied a lot, and I'm going to say there's a lot of guilt and something hidden down there, because you don't say to someone's ex-wife who's deceased, hey, I had your baby that you always wanted, in a positive way. You say, hey, bitch, I got your kid. You know?
Yeah.
So she divorced this man that she was married to for 22 years, goes and gets remarried, has another child, correct? Or was the child, did she have the child
The
before?
child was with him. That is
Okay,
Travis's half sister.
So she has another child, but then she becomes like obsessed with
Proving that
her
he, yeah.
ex-husband murdered his wife, and
And
she develops this
there was
weird connection to the deceased.
yeah. And my what I've said since day one is it's guilt.
Because
I
she
think,
knew.
yeah. That's what I think. I mean, I
So
could be wrong, but it just seemed like, because she was just, that was all she could talk about. That was all she was like obsessed.
whatever her reasonings, wife number 2 certainly did develop an obsession with Mary Margaret's disappearance. Anywhere a true crime buff would go on the internet to discuss a missing persons case, let's say, she had been there and she had posted about the facts of the case. It still didn't bring answers, though. In 2003, the case was renewed. A tip, some kind of information, led detectives to reopen the case and take another look at Earl. When they went to speak with him, he refused to talk as usual, and the thing he said in the very beginning was, "Prove that I did it." And he repeated this again in 2003 to the Lakeland Ledger. He didn't provide much assistance. He didn't do much to help find his wife. He agreed to blood samples and all the required things, but nothing a grieving husband would normally do. Whatever investigators learned in 2003, it led them to the garage in their former home, where Earl reportedly worked on vehicles in his spare time when he wasn't painting, which was his primary business. They dug and dug and dug for over a week. They even found bones, but they turned out to be animal bones. It was incredibly disappointing for everyone involved, and it was an amazing effort by the Polk County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, well, when I started talking to you, I thought he's going to be so pissed at me for telling people about this. And I said, no, honey, so when I told him, I'm like, I didn't tell her anything except the year and the county, and she knew our last name. I was like, that's it. I didn't know she was going to look it up and stuff, but he was never upset with me about it. And I said, so one day he hates when I do this because it scares him. I'm like, sit down, I want to talk to you. He's like, what?
That's when you know you're in trouble with the parents. Sit down on the couch. I don't want to sit down. If I stand up, I can run.
I was like, Meg wants me to do this video with her. I said, but I kind of don't want to stir anything up. And he goes, oh no, stir it up. Stir it up. And I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, that makes me feel better about doing this. Then after I started talking to you about this, I said something to Travis and he goes, oh yeah, we have a half brother. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, Tony knows the guy. And he said that the guy is our half brother.
It just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. What Debbie is referring to is the case of Peggy Byars-Baisden. When Mary Margaret's case received renewed attention in 2003, online sleuths determined that there was quite a connection between her and Peggy. Peggy and Mary Margaret lived 2 blocks away from each other. Peggy went missing in 1965. Mary went missing in 1970. Peggy was a single divorced mother with 2 children. One of her children was born during the course of her marriage, and the other was born afterwards. So there was questions about whether something could be related to Earl. Peggy was last seen at a bar known as the Chatterbox. Earl was also known to hang out at this bar. She was seen in the parking lot with a man who was leaning over her car, fixing something mechanically. After that, neither her or her vehicle has ever been seen again. So just recently, a company that searches for missing people called Sunshine State Sonar has taken on Peggy's case. Since it is the oldest unsolved case in Polk County, she went missing with her vehicle, and they do water searches. Her vehicle has never been found. Earl was a mechanic, and Peggy was reported to have been seen with a man that generally matched Earl's description working on her car shortly before she went missing. So for a car to disappear, there's only 2 different things that could happen. Either it's underwater or it was parted out. Earl's a mechanic. He probably could have parted out the car, but where's he going to do it at that nobody's going to see? And was that even a thing back in the 60s? Or drove it into a sinkhole, water, whatever. So they have decided they're going to start searching local waterways for her. So there's a chance that a 60-year-old case could be solved. So Mary's case could be solved, but finding someone in a vehicle is way more likely than finding just a body. Sunshine State Sonar has compiled a significant amount of information about Peggy's case. You can follow them on Facebook. Just search Sunshine State Sonar. We don't know if there's any relation between the 2 cases, but of course, we're always looking to solve any case possible. And if there is some kind of connection between the 2, solving Peggy's case may give us the break that we finally need to solve Mary's case. Because at this point, Earl is gone. Detectives from the Polk County Sheriff's Office visited him on his deathbed, and he refused to provide any information.
I don't know. What difference does it make? They're not going to put you in jail when you're dying. Just say it.
Say where she is so you can...
Yeah, that's my thing. I want to know where she is.
Give those kids closure.
Yeah.
So, Debbie has quite a story. Quite a story, let me tell you.
Yeah, and my little true crime heart. I mean, I felt bad for him, but at the same time, how cool is it for detectives to show up at the hospital when somebody's dying?
Well, it is like the last chance.
Yeah. He wouldn't even talk to him.
We're dual streaming this. So Debbie has it on her channel and I have it on my channel at the same time. So you may only see people that are on that specific person's channel. I'm not really sure how it works. I don't know exactly how it works. So if you don't see something, that would be why. But yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And it's not impossible to solve it. It's still possible. It's just a matter of figuring out where it could be.
I want to find her. She needs to be laid to rest. I just want to find her. But at this point, I doubt we ever will.
It really depends on where. If you think about it, if somebody, I hate to say it, but disposes of a body and on land, it's always going to be there. But if you do it in the water, it gets buried under the silt and everything else. So
and somebody in the chat said earlier that gators probably got her, and that's very likely. In fact, Travis's sister asked him one time, where is she? Like, she just flat out asked him, and he said, there's a lot of places in Florida to hide them.
And that is so incredibly true. And
it is.
I mean, if you look at the map of the area, it's like Swiss cheese with water. It's called Lakeland because there's so many lakes. And on top of that, they had the mining operations that were going on. And there were different stages of the mines where sometimes it was water, sometimes it was clay, and that clay would settle down to the bottom and anything down there would just get buried in it. So
yeah, and Travis said something about there were some sinkholes that then had buildings put over them. And I think something you showed me said that they had built some buildings over where some old sinkholes were. And like I said, I don't know if it's a repressed memory or his dad actually said something and he overheard it. I don't, I have no idea, but that just seems like the most likely thing.
Well, that's probably something that could be investigated. I'm sure there's records of that because to fill in a sinkhole is more than just putting some dirt in it.
Right.
So engineering records and things like that. Now you have to pull permits and you have to do a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of regulations related to sinkholes. But back then, I doubt there was quite so much. But I'm sure there's city records, county records. Somebody needs to go to Polk County and sit at the library and spend a bunch of time.
Yeah, we have sinkholes out behind our house. And I called, someone gave me, I don't even remember, I guess it was my home insurance, gave me a number to call. And the person that I talked to, he would just come out and inspect it to see if it could be done and what needed to be done to really, shore it up where it wouldn't just fall back in again. It was like $1,000 just for him to come out and see it.
That's actually really cheap.
Are you kidding me? Oh my God.
Yeah. I used to work for the engineering firm and they would charge tens of thousands of dollars for the geotechnical evaluation.
Oh my God. So I was just like, okay, I guess I'm just going to sit here until my house falls in a sinkhole and then I'll have to pay. There's nothing I can do. I couldn't have. And then of course it's going to be way more than that for them to come out and do it. So, I mean, it's filled in with dirt.
But houses that actually fall in sinkholes is like super, super small.
I don't know. Every time, if I put a pencil on the table and it starts rolling, I'm like, our house is sinking. It's not level anymore. We're going to end up in a sinkhole. It's my eye again.
There's so many in Florida. I mean, they're out
Yeah,
of
every
control.
place I've ever lived, pretty much, there's been a sinkhole close by. And as kids, we played in them. We didn't know any better, and nobody
Yeah.
was like, don't go in there because the ground might open up and you'll be gone. Nobody said that to us.
Well, because that
We
didn't
just
happen
played
back then, because there wasn't so much building and like everything that was underneath. So there's the layer of limestone and there's cavities in the limestone, and then underneath that, it's kind of big and open and water and everything. And so it wasn't as messed with back then. So it was a lot more stable. The more you build on it, the more you mess with it, the more unstable
there
it
were
gets.
some right across the street from us, and it was like another world down there. Like, they were so old that they were stable, and the grass was growing back in the depression and everything. And we'd like hike up and down the sides of it and play hide and seek down there and stuff. But the ones that we have behind my house now are scary.
So does anybody have any questions for Debbie? I put a link to her page in the chat, so please go check it out and subscribe. But if you have any questions about the case in general, while we have her here, please feel free to ask. I think you were kind of answering them as we were going.
Yeah.
In the chat.
The one part where she said that she did not know he was a suspect, that was just a bold-faced lie. Because she knew. It wasn't just because he was the husband. Like, she knew. She knew that they were really looking at him.
Yeah, I'm sure, because they looked at him at first, and then they really started looking at him a few years later. And they never really stopped looking for him.
Sheriff Judd even said in an interview that allegiances had changed and new people were coming forward that didn't come forward before. And when I read that, I was like, that he's got to be talking about her. He has to be talking about her.
By the way, a lot of you guys are familiar with Sheriff Grady Jud. He gives very animated press conferences. So before he was sheriff of Polk County, which he's been sheriff for, I think, like
ever
20 years. Before he was sheriff, he was a investigator, detective, whatever, and he was actually on this case. So
I didn't realize that. And as much as like I love Grady Judd. I like when he does a new press conference and he says something funny, I tell Travis about it, and he'll tell me about stuff he's seen about him. Like, we talk about him all the time. And then I found out he was on the case. I was like, did you know he was on the case? And he was like, yeah, I knew that. Nobody ever told me.
So yes, we tried to reach out to the son. When she passed away, her sister had passed, I think, before her. I'm not sure exactly how it worked, but they went to live with her brother-in-law. Peggy's brother-in-law took custody of them and raised them, and they had a really, from what I read in one of the articles, they had a good upbringing and everything, but they're still wanting answers for what happened to their mother, which, the same thing with Debbie's husband. It's what happened to my mother. Which is basically Laura's question. How do you go on with no closure?
I don't know. I don't know how he does it. He, like I said in the chat, he's an amazing man. And there's like, if you were to meet him, you would have no idea anything like this was in his background. Like the one part in the poem that I like, the only part in the poem that I like is where she says that the cycle's been broken because him and his brother, they're family men. They're very good men. And, he's been
some people that have
fault.
bad upbringings mirror it, and some people learn from it. And
unfortunately, it's more the mirror than learning. But I don't know how he does it. Like, I have both my parents are dead. I have a place to go if I want to, to just sit down and remember them or talk to them or whatever, and he doesn't have that. And I just want to bring her home for him. I want him to have that. But yeah, he's almost 60. He's 59, I think. So he's gone a long time without a real mom. His stepmom has tried to step in, but I have issues with their childhood.
Well,
They were
talking
just
about her speaking out, that's what we were kind of alluding to in the video, is she went through a phase where she posted everywhere online talking about the case. I mean, everywhere. Which was great because she was bringing attention to it, but it just kind of was a little bizarre because all indications are that she was aware of, what was going on either before or right after it happened, because she was in a relationship with him when it happened. So it was just a little off-putting. I'm not really sure, but she called herself the other mother and was very sympathetic and just on a mission to solve the case and prove Earl's guilt and find where she was located at.
I'm not crying on my eyes watering.
It was hard.
Yeah, it's strange. And she still will bring it up at times. Like,
Yeah.
And sometimes I just have to tell her, would you just, don't talk about it? Because she says things she shouldn't say, and then he gets upset, and,
We don't know. I couldn't get a file. We're gonna keep trying. We're not done. I got 20 something pages on Peggy, but they said there was nothing available for Mary Margaret. So
yeah. So the first thought was that it was one of his uncles. I don't know. That I don't know about. I think she knew, but I don't know that she knew beforehand. So, I mean, that's a good question, but I don't know. But it was either an uncle, because he's got a bunch of brothers. I think there's like 10 kids altogether. So Earl has a bunch of brothers. So there was one that we thought helped him. But then there was also like a cop that married into the family. I don't even know how he's related, but there's also a rumor that he covered stuff up. But as far as an official investigation into any of those people, I have no idea.
Yeah, there's no telling. And there's no, even if I could get every record that there is not going to be sufficient records from back then. So they say that I think the biggest thing is that Travis remembers a lot of bits and pieces, but with so many years having passed, I mean, 53 years have passed. So are you really remembering that original thing that happened? Or are you remembering things that you've read, things that you've heard, things that your mind has like melded together and, twisted and made up? Who knows? I mean, most of us have seen the documentaries and stuff that talk about witnesses and how unreliable they are the more time that goes on.
Yeah,
no
when I was 4, we went on a vacation out west, and I remember all kinds of stuff. But then now that I'm older, I think, do I really remember it, or was it from seeing pictures and home movies from the trip? I don't know. Yep. I mean, like the things I remember that I know I haven't seen in a picture or on a home movie, I know that I actually remember that because there's no other evidence of it. But with stuff, with pictures and video and stuff, I could have just seen that and just thought I remembered doing it, So, yeah, that's memory's weird. It's like your brain does things to protect itself. Mm-hmm. It like compartmentalizes. Okay. He still remembers like it was yesterday.
All right, everyone. If you haven't already done so, please take a minute and go check out Debbie's channel. It's at True Crimes of CM, True Crimes of the Criminal Mind. And if you joined us a little bit late, I suggest popping back to the beginning. Debbie tells me her story of her stepmother that's been missing. Her mother-in-law that has been missing for 53 years. And there's also a neighbor that has been missing for 57 years. And her father-in-law is a suspect in it. And we dive into some of the craziness that went on in that case. So
thank you, guys. I actually have people on my channel watching this. I can't believe it. This is my first live.
yay,
You guys are amazing.
first live. All right, so check it out. Give it a share. And we're going to keep digging in on the case. And if we find anything exciting, we will let you know. Take care, everyone, and thank you.
Bye.